We've got sports groups, Tim, Welton Rovers Tim, and Rithington Sports Trust, we've got Gordon, and then youth groups, we've got Martin. That's it then. So actually,
alright.
apart from Alcanal.
No, none of them on here. So I'm a bit confused what we're actually doing.
That's obviously this Debbie's working through. One of the things I would say about these outside bodies is I don't think any of them require a council resolution. Am I right in saying that?
No, you just need, so you're representing the council.
It can be changed just by emailing the office and saying, can we swap? It's not like being on one of the, say,
the issue is that if you're a representative of the council, you don't actually have to declare an interest when talking about items from that particular body. Okay, because you're representing the town council on the one I did send out this afternoon was we need somebody to sit on the High Street Heritage Action Zone committee.
Was it one or two? So I would quite like to do it.
But yeah. I'm currently chair of that anyway.
I was on that.
Linda was on that. But I don't know if I'm going to continue as chair of it, but I was.
Is that an Abene's capacity?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
are we doing Linda and Gordon?
if we need 2 people plus Sean's on as well, that's quite good, isn't it? 3. I'm happy to do it. I quite like to be involved.
Very
in that.
interesting.
Okay.
Well, it's reaching the point where there actually is some action within the action heritage zone. So it's actually it's moving into its sort of towards, it's a 4-year project and it's moving towards the latter stages of that. So it's physical action now rather than all the previous stuff which was just finance.
Well, just on that, because I did ask Joe about that, and it's the only sort of representative we've not had at meeting, but since I've been a councillor, and it's sort of, we've had the town hall refurbishment, but an awareness of what's going on with.
Well, it was Mike Evans before. I think he was on there, wasn't he?
Yeah, because as a new
But one
councillor,
thing,
know what that.
well, I was going to say that one of the things, I don't want to go off at a tangent at all, but one of the things would be great if councillors could try and sort of harvest any information about the things they are assigned to and give little statements in this outside body bit so we know communicating, because we've been a bit remiss in that. Martin's been quite good at information at the Community Trust, for instance. But that's something we could all work on, so we're all sharing what we've gone out and discovered about these outside bodies. Are we just about there?
I think we still just
Well,
need clarity on what outside
yeah,
bodies are actually.
because of the list that what happened, we were given a list before, and then some people said that no, some of the bodies don't exist anymore. So I sent out a spreadsheet with all of the original ones, and then there was feedback for which ones were no longer running, and I crossed those off, and then that left me with this list. But now Gemma's pointing out that actually we seem to have lost some more. So okay, maybe a mistake was made. But it's fine, but
No, so there's only 6 on this.
On the agenda's not got the comprehensive list on it, which is what Gemma's pointing out, but we can obviously propose that in the minutes perhaps that we can use Debbie's list to record the representation that we wish to put forward for these outside bodies.
Yeah,
well,
fine, as long as we know how to do it.
Exactly, I was going to say, I'm not even sure it has to be 100% minutes. Most of these are just fairly.
I thought one of these does though.
Does it?
Like,
Because isn't that the result?
They're not statutory numbers anyway, are they?
That's it.
They're recommended numbers, so we can have
Yeah,
more or less on most of it.
Paul, I'll do this properly and email it to you, and then just.
You've done such a good job of getting us almost there, and it just requires maybe a little bit of conversation.
Yeah.
And if there's anything, because we obviously don't have to fill all of them either.
Okay.
It's not statutory, so it's really just the trusts and stuff you have to fill. And then that's good.
So who's got the definitive list of where we are then? You've got that, haven't you?
What?
The definitive list of where we currently are.
This now, yeah.
Brilliant. Well done.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Deb.
Good effort, yeah. Right, did we have to do anything to finish the outside bodies? Just to receive, oh no, sorry, it's the representation of item 30. So the items deferred from the previous meeting, it's mostly resolved now. Are we happy to proceed with this? Yeah, okay, that's fine. Right, thanks everyone. So, following on from that then, item 31, we have some outside bodies reports.
In terms of the Midsummer Norton Community Trust and the recent Music and Arts Festival, so I've written a passage here which I'll read out and then I'll submit to see if we can include in minutes. So the Midsummer Norton Community Trust organised a very successful Midsummer Norton Music and Arts Festival on Saturday the 3rd of June. The main organisers were myself for the Town Council and Community Trust, Alex Davis, the Midsummer Norton Community Trust Manager, Beth Wally, the Cultural Consortium leader, Richard Burgess from Summer Valley and also on Midsummer Norton Community Trust, and Gordon Mackay, Town Council and Community Trust trustee, with a lot of help from other people, some of who were sitting in the public gallery now, Steve in front of me and Dave as well, were invaluable help, and Joe and lots of other people volunteered. It couldn't function without all those people helping to take place. The Town Council gave £2,000 towards the costs, so that's in our involvement in that as well as some of the volunteers. The rest was raised through sponsorship and donations. We have 15 music acts in total, including local school bands from Norton Hill and Somervale, and Bath College bands, and 4 established bands. Around 3,000 people recorded through clip counters. All parts of the event were successful, from the bar, which was supplied by the outfield crew, to the 6 food vendors and ice cream, face painting, graffiti demonstration, t-shirt making, and we had art displays and art workshops run by local residents. Many favourable comments have been received personally and online on social media. The event also linked with the My High Street Community Art event that was largely run through the Better Cultural Consortium, with displays and activities on that theme within the festival, connecting with the work that's on display around the town at the moment.
A quick question: is this going to be an annual festival now?
Well, that was the aim of the trust. It's the second. We did the Jubilee one, and that went well despite the weather.
So we're going to plan to do this.
Yeah, the plan is to do it again next year. Yeah.
I'd just like to point out as well, Martin, thanks very much for your efforts aside from that, because it's an incredible achievement to have done that. And the importance of that asset that we have being used and seen and promoted by an event like that, and the walking routes that you can access it from all over. Appreciate it's not just Lisbon North residents. People come from really far afield, haven't they? And being at the farmers market in the morning, there was people there that had come from really far afield, and that was something that added to their day. So the appreciation's there in terms of the time put in, but also in behalf of the council, I guess we should say, is that event is incredibly constructed to promote those amazing assets that we have.
Mark's been quite quick to think everyone else, but everyone knows deep down Mark. The kind of the Mike Levis of the Midsummer Norton Music and Arts Festival. Massively appreciated. Is there any other reports from colleagues? I don't know if you guys wanted to say how you got on the market, for instance. I heard it was really quite successful.
There are quite a few people taking leaflets, weren't there?
Myself, Alan was there, Linda, you were there, and we also had Charlotte. Yeah, and I spent a good 3 hours there. It was very interesting, having kind of gone through there before. I sort of spent time talking to traders, getting their views on sort of what they thought of the market itself, what the market has as a presence on a high street, what they thought about, kind of what it's all about really. And one of the lovely things that was said is that people do build up a regular kind of visiting habit to tend to go to the stores, like the baker sells that every week, and people make a point once a month using that market to access things that perhaps otherwise aren't provided on the high street, but potentially in the future, and this is kind of one of my sort of hope points, is that with these kind of embryonic market type events, with all these different traders, is you never know when they might decide to set up shop somewhere they've got a particularly good reputation following. And there is a room for expansion within that market. What they're kind of saying is they like the size of it compared to other markets in their remit. It's a lovely market, an amazing location. The feedback is that it's very pretty, and everyone loves being there. What we can do potentially to promote that in light of the opportunity of a market hall in the future, an extension of those kind of services to the local community, is probably quite important to us, to get that feedback and kind of garner that volume effectively. Because it's like a little test market really that's been running for so long that effectively in the future other people could step forward and run their own markets in the new market spaces and when that comes about. So yeah, it's really beneficial. Enjoyed it as well. The music was great, and yeah, I'll be going again in that capacity, and also just to go and buy bits and bobs, I suppose. Stories.
Did we manage to take down, was it the gazebo that we were taking down? I was going to say, because I came down at about 11, so and actually must have missed all of you, because saw no one and thought, oh, maybe no one's arriving,
I think all the gazebos
there's no one.
we've struggled a little bit, because usually Summer Valley set up, and we just kind of piggyback on them, but we need to be a bit more proactive, and we're sort of talking about maybe changing it from the town council gazebo to community trust and Summer Valley one, so it becomes more of a community thing, because the town council, we have to go out and tell people things, but people don't actually come to the town council, I don't say, to engage with us. But as a general community stall, I think Louise is quite keen to push that, and obviously we as councillors and community trust people can be part of that.
Yeah, and having spoken to Louise, she was quite encouraging of some kind of presence there, but obviously we have to decide what's appropriate as a presence. Because to talk to the traders was really important. People, like I said, are kind of going there to shop, so you didn't want to kind of get in the way. They're there to do stuff and go again. Like flea markets, like perhaps more to use example, it's a tourist attraction, but people do spend money there, but it's all very much like passing off, pick this up, put that. You know what you're going to get. That market is like established people that go there, they have additions, but they're very careful with the sort of ecosystem they've got for traders. And another thing that was mentioned alongside that, so we can have a presence at times when it's appropriate, we feel there's things to promote for the town council perhaps. You've got the community trust relevant things like that, and then also it was mentioned that the High Street Heritage Action Zone would be really good to have there as well, so they could actually have a presence and sort of maybe be approached to find out what that's all about in terms of it, like Sean said earlier, coming into action. So the heritage is having some action. It's just, yeah, so that was it really. It's just one of those things that happens once a month, which, yeah, it feels like it's not frequent enough, but for me anyway. But those sorts of things are bit by bit, I suppose, and we've got to create that. The growth area for that ecosystem.
Thank you very much. Any other reports from outside bodies coming on? Right, thanks everyone. It's always a good thing to think of, isn't it? You kind of think of stuff to bring to the council that you've interacted with these bodies that we've almost appointed. So, if we move on to item 32, correct, to note and adopt asset register, and what do we have to do to note and adopt it? Do we need to resolve that?
Yeah, it's just this is part of the annual governance and audit regulation (AGAR) that you're just about to look at. So at the end of each year, council has to submit the AGAR form, which has three elements. One is the internal auditor's report. The second is to formally resolve that the accounts are correct, and to agree the annual governance statement. Basically, this does need some more work, really. There was we're trying to find out where the data is. There was an asset register created using some software from a company called Pair Mapping, or Pair Technologies. But we haven't got either the software or or we can't find the database. So there's a couple of things really. One is that the original asset register had a few assets that were valued at £1. Now they're an outside space, that's absolutely fine, but a piece of equipment worth a quid shouldn't be recorded on an asset register, and sort of the line drawn really is basically your insurance excess. So everything under your insurance excess is you can't claim. So you would probably not record that as an asset. So that's something that that the council needs to look at over the next 12 months. However, just on that bit, if you have 4 benches at £100 each and they all get destroyed and you make a claim, you would say we've lost 4 benches worth £400, you'd have an excess that would be 125 to 250, so you get £200 back. So it is a discussion that members need to happen so that we can finalise it. But for this year, I've gone through it as best I can, and I believe that you have assets of around 362,626. And just remember that in this current year, 23-24, you will have an asset in the town hall, and the capital spend on that asset should be recorded on your asset register. So whatever you spend yourselves and the grant funding will be going on as the asset value of the town hall. So that's just the
very good background there, Sean. You want to make
yeah, just a point. Obviously, we're doing this in reverse because the annual internal audit reports for the item asset and investment registers were complete and accurate and properly maintained. We've ticked no against that. So if we've ticked no against that, I'm not sure that we can note and adopt the asset register. If in the internal audit report we've ticked
It's for last year, isn't it?
Well, I don't know.
Is it correct? No, the audit is for last year's.
22-23.
no, 22-23. So let's see what.
So that's associated to this year's register, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's noted in the review of the fixed asset registers in the audit report.
they have been properly maintained over the
Exactly.
years. So it's the point is that you've got to put a value on your assets, and this is as close to. I'm not sure why you did tick no on that, but because I went through it quite carefully with it.
The recommendation in that report was something like it suggested perhaps taking photographs of this. So who knows?
Well, the
record it.
price of the purchase price, the date it was purchased, depreciation rate. I can't believe the board.
Right, no, just it doesn't require depreciation because we are a local government authority. So your asset register is based on purchase price of your particular asset. So in the case of the town hall, the purchase price of that was £1. The capital expenditure might be 1.2, 1.4 million. So that goes on as a separate thing. So it is different from private sector in the way that you record assets.
We need to have a purchase statement, and I'm not really sure when we'd ever go and buy one. We could don't think so.
Well,
If we can, we might go and buy one.
Is it rental? That might be. Or is it
Yeah, well, assets is something that you purchase.
going off.
It's something that I've inherited and I've gone through it.
in light
Sorry,
of
just
the
one thing, we might also have office chairs and office stairs.
yeah, that can be amended, can't it? So like again, this is one of those things that kind of comes under the remit of staff shortages potentially, where this register could be more comprehensive for us to adopt in potential review when it's appropriate and timely. That's all I'd say.
Well, I wanted to ask Paul, do we have, do we have an actual choice at the moment? We have to not adopt this asset register, otherwise
We can't insure it.
exactly. So, and for the moment, certainly it sounds like something that needs to be maintained better, and I think
We need to set it as an objective to improve it.
Sorry, can I ask why a couple of things are highlighted? Why there's 4 items that are highlighted?
I don't know.
That is because they are things that you have spent capital funds on this year. So they're the areas that I've added to the assets from last year. So you did a significant piece of work regarding friendship. We bought a new van. They bought a new hedge trimmer and a steel lockable cupboard, and that's it. So that's what I did. That's why I went through it. Unfortunately, it hasn't been updated as you go along. So every time you have an asset, theoretically, either a should go on the file. Problem is we can't find any either the date or the files, so we are in a between the rock and a hard place.
Sorry, Paul, can I just ask then, with the Garden of Friendship at 29,000, was that for, it's on a 99-year lease, yeah? That one, isn't it? So is that including, that's buying the lease and the work done
No,
in it?
that's just the work. The lease is you're leasing the land. It's not your asset, but you are investing in that land. So you made a capital expenditure on it.
So that costs nearly 30 grand to put the benches
Yeah.
and the railings up, and yeah, just as a matter of interest, and the grass.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably one for, could be asked before, but I think that was
Okay,
all done through grant funding. So that was all grants.
That was grant funding.
Yeah, you'd have to check, but I think we put a little bit in, but most of that was done by grant funding. The way it shows up, of course, it doesn't say, there's not like a tick that says grant funding.
Because of course it sounds like a lot for what the end result is. I mean, I know those benches aren't cheap, they're about a grand, aren't they? I think those benches.
Absolutely, but that's
that's only a few. Yeah, okay. Well, it'd be interesting to know actually that.
But that's no different than the town hall. You could say it's going to cost X amount, and people aren't aware that most of it is going to cost.
absolutely.
Okay.
At the risk of going off the subject of noting and adopting our asset register, I think we have to. Did you say we have to actually resolve it? So that was that part of proposer and a seconder, or is it just?
Just to adopt it. I mean, as long as you agree.
So we have to we recognise
Yeah,
needs of maintenance, and clerks with a limited staff with a limited resources at the moment are aware of the fact that that's going to require some extra maintenance over the next year.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think if we can minute that following the I guess it's a recommend. Well, it's not even a recommendation. I guess it's noted in the reports, that in the audit reports, that the work has not yet been concluded. So if we can minute that more work is required to conclude it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's actually a very good point to make as well.
And it says that it does when there's appropriate staffing. It's we're right to make it a priority to make sure we're ensuring.
I'm happy to adopt it in its current form, provided that we've minuted that we know it's still working fine.
I'm very happy with that. That's absolutely, I'm sure everyone's happy with that. So, in that case, are we okay to go on to item 33 then? Further ado, which is also to note the internal audit report. Does anyone want to make a comment?
Well,
We just have to agree to address the issues raised.
Well, when some of the issues raised to do with the fact that we had a lack of staff.
It's the pertinent issue, isn't it? Yeah. Everything we're highlighting in terms of spelling mistakes and the amount of time we can put into anything is simply down to the fact that we haven't got the actual hours in staff to complete these tasks appropriately.
We do have
to have a proper function.
We do have an agenda item later to hopefully look at that. That's a very good point. Anyone else?
I would like to ask one. I'd like to and I genuinely ask. I want to understand. It mentions the fact that we've lost the general power of competence, which obviously limits what we can do as a council.
Yes.
So, just to understand exactly what the limitations are, we can only perform statutory function at the moment. So, for example, if we wanted to do something like reinstate the street marshals, let's say, at the moment we wouldn't be allowed to do that. Is that correct?
The reason that that you have lost the power of general competence is when I did the certificate, it was dated 1994, and it wasn't at that time a twinkle in the government's eye. The recent Silkers have a specific area to cover what power of general competence covers. Essentially, the power of general competence is your first stop for legislation. If you have that, there are 4 areas which I can't recall off the top of my head, but I think there's business, community, and there's a couple of others. So you can do anything within the power of general competence that is legal. You can't do anything that's not legal. So, for example, you still couldn't support an educational establishment, which is a statutory function, by something else.
Can I just, so I think I'm hearing you correctly, you kind of asking whether we lost like the ability to do something, or is the power of having...
So, by losing this power of general
Is it not,
for example, if we wanted to, I don't know, so we wanted to buy a building just say we wanted to buy Holly Court and renovate it and then rent it out.
You'd be allowed to do that.
so I think what...
You're saying we would be allowed to do that?
I think what it is, they're saying we're not generally competent in exercising their power.
No, it's a very specific thing. It's very, very specific.
Oh, I'm not applying anything, I'm trying to understand what we're going to take.
I'm just not competent.
Okay. It's a point that's noted in the reports.
No, so essentially you have everything that is available to you under various legislation, and there's an awful lot of scope. You don't have any statutory functions apart from looking for allotments, you have many powers to spend money. Open Spaces Act, the Allotments Acts, all sorts of miscellaneous provisions Act. All of those things cover. You've even got highways and highway options, which you're, as a parish or town council, you're allowed to spend money on. But the power of general competence was introduced to increase the range of things, and because you don't get any money off businesses. The precept doesn't take anything off local businesses. Your precept is directly from residents.
Sorry, can we have a summary of what we can't do now?
So, no, I can't give you a summary because you don't know what you can do.
Okay, well, what I was going to say is, to be honest, because I'm always aware of time a little bit, and we do have a lot on our agenda. I think it's an excellent thing if people want to go and research it. It's all online with general competences, and certainly if somebody wants to go into more detail later.
All I can say,
I'm not worried that we'll spend
all I can say is that I've never.
Okay.
It's a good thing to bring up though, because we can aim
So basically what I would suggest then, this report, because we're clearly not going to be able to cover it all tonight, so the internal audit report that we're being asked to note
and action.
That's it.
Okay. Obviously, I mean, there's no formal recommendations in it, but there's a lot of informal ones. And there's a lot in this report that needs to be looked at.
Okay.
And I suggest that this report needs to go to the Finance and Ops to be looked at and understand all those informal recommendations in the report. What I would like, and maybe it's not in this meeting, but it does say in here that it's noted that following the resignation of the former clerk, the council will no longer meet the qualifying criteria for the adoption in the general power of competence and will need to instead rely on section 137 powers until a suitably qualified clerk is permanently recruited. Obviously that means that we have some restrictions on what we can do, and what I want to do is understand what those restrictions are, and I'm not getting that explanation.
I think because I would recommend that you actually just write an email asking that question, and then you can get a full response and we can all share it, whereas I think it's probably difficult for me to even remember the answer that's given in this forum, so that's the best way to do it.
No, that's right.
Absolutely. Or anything,
an explanation.
Sure, Paul will give you a full explanation, but do you know what? Well, we can agree